For years, we had an annual presentation from this state agency, the Labor Market Information Branch of the Texas Workforce Commission. Mick Normington was coming every year, and he's no longer with the agency, and we just haven't had anybody for quite a long time. So this time, we have Philip Arnold. He is from the Labor Market and Career Information Department of the Texas Workforce Commission. This sounds incredibly dry and boring, but I suspect that he'll be able to make it. The information is going to be important and interesting to you. So, I'm hoping he's got some magic tricks up his sleeve. So the title is Using Labor Market Tools to Help You Find Jobs. The Labor Market and Career Information has several tools that might help you in your job search, in particular identifying the local labor market you are looking for jobs in, which. He is an Economist 3 and has worked with the Texas Workforce Commission Labor Market and Career Information Department for what will be 20 years. That whole time has been in the Dissemination and Outreach Unit of the LMCI department, his primary job being to distribute employment-related data. He graduated from East Texas State University in Commerce and Lanier in Austin. He had a media consultant business in the 1980s. So let's welcome, please, Philip Arnold.
I looked at the map. I clicked on the map that Shannon sent me the other day, and I was like, okay, so I'm going to Williamson County. I'm going to go to Round Rock, and I looked at it, and I went, wait a second. That's 3 or 4 blocks from where I went to high school. So I was a little surprised by that. And so I want you to know that there's probably 2 areas where I have common ground with you. That's one of them. It's good to be back in the old stomping grounds, even though I lived in Westover Hills before Anderson High School was built. Which, if you know where that, I'm doing old Austin neighborhoods. So, in fact, then I remember I once helped clean up this creek as part of the student council project, and it was, what's the name of the creek? It's Williamson Creek. There's also have a Williamson Creek in South Austin. I don't know exactly how that works out, but you know how Austin is with streets and creeks and things like that. I don't know, it's the city of Austin. Austin's been weird for longer than they've been weird, if you know what I mean. So, the other thing is that I've nearly had this job for 20 years, but guess what? Before I got this job, I got fired in December of 1998 from a warehouse. I was actually a night dispatcher. So how do you go from being a night dispatcher to an Economist 3? Well, you get fired. And you find a job you're more qualified for. This is really important because sometimes when we're in the workforce, we don't realize that we're not doing what we could be doing best. Now, I'm just going to say that as a little pep talk, and that's not what the main thing is here, but we'll come across a point where I'll tell you what I thought was the key to me getting the job I got. By the way, we have several openings in my department. If you happen to have a bachelor's degree, there are several job openings with Texas Workforce Commission, Labor Market and Career Information Department. If you're detailed oriented, if you understand Excel, you probably can get a job. You're qualified. You can answer phones. You're probably qualified. It's not like there's a tremendous number of qualifications. Communication skills is a plus. I guess that's why I'm doing this. I was actually hired as an information specialist to start off with back in 1999. And guess what? Back in 1999 over on Runberg, we had that's where the North Austin office of the Workforce Solutions office, before it was Workforce Solutions, was. We had what we called the Donut Club. So I was sitting right in one of those chairs trying to figure out how to get a job. So I've been there too. So let's look at some of the information that we have available for you. If you go to our website, general website at lmci.state.tx.us, you can work down the left side of the file. I guess let's see if I have a pointer here. Well, I guess I can point it. Left side, work down the page. Right side, education orientation. And the first bit of software program I'm going to show you today is Texas Autocoder. Because one of the biggest issues is, what is the job that you're looking for? Okay, now we gather some information, and it starts off on the job side with Occupation and Employment Statistics Survey. We actually find out all the occupations we can from a survey of 25,000 employers in the state of Texas. And we have something called a Standard Occupation Code. Some of you may be familiar with ONET. I'm not as familiar with ONET, but it's out there, it's a tool, it's a resource, you can use it. We use Standard Occupation Tool, which is actually codes, which is actually 2 digits shorter than the ONET code. And when we send out a survey to employers, they go down a list of occupations, and they'll write down the number of people in that wage survey that have that particular occupation and the wage ranges. So you pretty much can get and find out what the kind of wages that are being paid for that occupation is. However, trying to figure out what your standard occupation code or title is not the easiest thing to do. So Autocoder, which you can see is about 5 spots down from the left side, is a great spot to start. So if you click on Autocoder, and what you'll look at right here, it's pretty simple. You have a job title. So what is the job title you are looking for? Type it in. Hit the search button, and you'll get some results. In fact, if you don't even know what the title of your job, you can write a brief description down below it. I think normally we know what our job titles were or what we're looking for, so we can go ahead and do that. But you'll see some references to ONET codes and things like that, so if you want to get some more detailed information, you can also do that. So, if you type in an airplane mechanic, because I always choose these occupations that actually pay halfway decently. Believe it or not, when I was a night dispatcher at the warehouse row over by the Cross Park Post Office, making $8 an hour in 1998 was a big event for me. What wasn't a big event was they took me off of I was no longer allowed to work overtime. I worked overtime, but I didn't make overtime. But anyway, so when I got fired from that job, I had no idea I was going to work for the state of Texas. But if you type in an example, like for instance, here I put airplane mechanic, and they make above average wages in the state of Texas. If you ask me what the average wage in the state of Texas, my limited memory will come back with, in 2017, it was $47,709. Well, it's somewhere around there. And airplane mechanics will make probably in the $52,000 per year on average. We'll see later because we actually have that statistic. So if you type on it, type in a title, click on search, and you choose airplane mechanics and service technicians, that's what pops up as the best match. You can also look at some of the other possibilities that you might be interested in. And what you can do is actually start going across the row up here and finding out information about that particular occupation. So if you click on airplane mechanics and service technicians, you'll find out something about the search. You find out the name of the occupation, you have a description, and you'll have lay titles. Now, you notice it only goes through about 8 or 10 of them, but there's probably 150 or so of those occupation lay titles. So you'll go down and say, oh yeah, that one is pretty close to what I want, or maybe I need to look at another one. However, it should help you in your search.
Bill, are we able to ask you questions?
We will.
At the end or no?
You can ask it whenever you want.
What's the score? So if it's
Score.
out of what?
Well, if I go back, see, we had a 76 total score. That's a pretty good match. So that's the technical aspect of how they came up with that score, which I really don't understand. But the most important thing right there where it says score 76, That means it's a pretty strong match compared, especially to the other ones. 76 is very strong. Honestly, I'll see some 60s that are pretty strong. Yes, ma'am.
Is that based on user feedback?
No, that's based on where most of these occupations fall in the standard occupation title. So it's not user feedback. It's, in a certain sense, it is, in that our employers actually go through and they choose the occupation. We can't control how employers answer the occupation survey.
So it's a match to what?
It's a standard, whatever the BLS standard search tool is, or in this case, the ETA standard search tool is. So, don't know. That's a technical programming question, but I know this much, that 76 is a good match. It's strong. And you have options.
Typed in aircraft mechanic, and that matched to aircraft mechanics and service technicians.
Yes.
So that would be probably why it's a 76%.
And the breakdown is how well.
Right. We only, I think in this particular one, we only had 3 realistic matches. Sometimes you'll have 6 or 8 realistic matches. Sometimes you can change the title up, but yeah, it's you're right. It's airplane mechanic and service technician. By the way, almost all of our occupations are going to end with a plural name. So, like for instance, plumbers and welders, so forth. You're going to end in a plural. This is a decent search tool. This will give you a result. I've typed in a singular in particular because some of ours it won't match up unless you have the exact term. This is not one of them.
So is this based on data from 2012? I mean, that's the title 2012-6, which is
No, that's the actual SOC code when they had the base year for those SOC codes. And notice it says ONET 2012-6. That's what the most common term is. We're actually with SOC codes. We've got variations up to 2017. We'll have more variations up in 2018, and we'll have to make some corrections on that particular tool. But right now, this is a pretty good match. It's pretty much up to date. Okay, so you see right here, in case you wanted a definition, a description, and go down through a long list of lay titles, it'll help you try to figure out if that's what you actually want to look at. Or if you want to look at some of the other possibilities, you can do that. So if you click on the, let's go back a little bit. If you click on where it says occupational profiles, there it is, occupational title, then occupational profiles, you'll see that this will take us over to our Texas career check and this particular occupation, and it's a long, say, 3, 4, 5 page occupational profile, but you get a lot of information on it. So that can be of more use. And if you're wondering how good is Phil's memory, it's not very good. I said 52,000. No, it's statewide. It's more like 61,000 for airplane mechanics. This will also give you the 28 workforce development area regions. You'll notice that I'm thinking we're missing Northeast Texas, which would be 7. We're missing a few 16 and 17, which I hate to make a guess where that's at. But we're missing a few areas because we don't have enough sample of airplane mechanics, which I don't understand because I live in Austin, Texas, where I see planes and jets fly over all the time. Especially during when UT has football games, we seem to get even more planes. Anyway. So you see, basically, we have the information on hourly wages. We have annual wages. This is a simple bit of information that comes from TexasWages.com, which is also a potential tool if you want to use it, which has a really good search engine. And by the way, if you can't find something in TexasWages.com, we've got the link to AutoCoder right below it, so as the alternative. So here is the results from the Texas openings for airplane mechanic. Now, this is where I go into how important work in Texas is. When I was looking for a job in 1999, work in Texas was not in existence. But the biggest key I found back then in helping me to get a job was called the Governor's Job Bank. Now, just out of curiosity, I know I'm 64 years old. How many people have ever used or heard of the Governor's Job Bank? Okay. Because once I found that, I found out there was information specialists that were out there with various state agencies. And I started dropping in applications because of my communications background. My degree at East Texas State was radio, television, and political science. So I applied for the information specialist at several agencies. I was dropping in application after application after application. Most important thing, get those applications in when you can find those application opportunities, because it becomes a numbers game. And I got called in for 2 or 3 interviews, and I don't know how I was blessed enough to get the job at the Texas Workforce Commission, but I was. And I always thought it was one of my supervisors who also went to East Texas State University, got his graduate degree, although I didn't know that he went to East Texas State. And of course, he knew that I did, but I think it was basically my communication skills. And also, the prior job, very strong customer service orientation and skills were taught on the job and had to have it. Delivery business is unbelievable at times, especially on a Friday when people are looking for their stuff that they haven't received yet. So you learn communication skills and customer service, and that's important. And sometimes, I don't know what we call that, soft skill, hard skill. I mean, but on-the-job training, honestly, is the best thing. So if you've answered phones and you've helped customers, you know, out before, that's just something you've got to put on a resume. That's important, and employers will use it. So you see down here that we have a bunch of job listings. I kind of went over and said, well, where's all the Austin, Texas job listings? Well, apparently there's not that many Austin, Texas job listings, but there's a bunch of job listings for airplane mechanics all over the state of Texas, not particularly in Austin. So work in Texas is a real key. It should help you find chances to get applications in and help you make decisions. Now, so if you're going across the page up there for airplane mechanics and say, well, what are the industries? If you want to know what industries that you might want to go do a job search for, an employer search in an industry, if you want to do it that way, aerospace product and parts manufacturer has the largest number of airplane mechanics of any industry. That surprised me. I expected it would be the second one, scheduled air transportation. And then, of course, support activities for air transportation. But every occupation will have an indication here of a staffing pattern. I actually call it a reverse staffing pattern, where you'll be able to see what industry these occupations are located in. So that can be helpful. So let's sum up AutoCoder. There were no results in the Help Wanted online. And I went over to my technical people and I said, how come there's no results in Help Wanted online? And they said, because there's no jobs being gone through on the internet for airplane mechanics. Some jobs aren't advertised online that much. But obviously, Work in Texas we had jobs listed across the state of Texas, and Help Wanted online will actually utilize those jobs and many more jobs that they get off the internet, what we call spidering, because it's like as they put out a web and they catch flies and jobs and stuff like that, so they put them right up there and Help Wanted online, but none for Austin. This tool is actually used by our personnel when we're doing the OES wage survey. Now, the OES wage survey, Occupational Employment Statistics, I will do acronyms because I'm a bureaucrat. Bureaucrats probably cite acronyms in their sleep. I mean, it's just kind of the way it is, and I have to always remember, okay, you just said OES, now explain what OES is. So I'll try not to do that very often, but Occupational Employment Statistics. Our section actually is hired out by the Bureau of Labor Statistics to do that survey, to send out that survey I was talking about where the employers go down the long list of occupations and put a slash or however many occupations they happen to have on staff and the wages that they're paying. So if our staff is using that to help them do their job, it's a pretty good tool. It's a tool you can use. I don't think it's that complicated. I'd use it if I had it. If I would have had a tool like that, say in 1998 or 1999, I think it would have sped things along. You have these tools now. You have more information than we had back in 1998 and 1999. But Again, there's still some basic keys. Get those applications in when you find the opportunities. And there's a lot of information you can use here in this tool to help you in your job search. Now, we just brought out a new tool. I don't know if we call it a tool, it's kind of is. It's our new website. So if you go to texaslmi.com, almost all of the statistics from the programs that we have in the Labor Market and Career Information Department, which I'll now probably call LMCI. You can find it here. So texaslmi.com is the website. You can also find it from that lmci.state.tx.us website. Down the first one on the left, that's that. And you'll see that basically we have several categories of information. Now, remember when I said OES, Occupational Employment Statistics, just a few minutes ago? Right there, fourth one down. You'll want to click on that so you can find out what the wages and the occupational employment is for that occupation. Somebody will say to me, Phil, how much should I ask for if I'm applying for a job? And I was like, well, I never put down a specific amount because I don't want to overshoot or undershoot for that matter. I always put down negotiable. Okay. Somebody else is an expert on what to do there, but I always put down negotiable. And then when you use this bit of information, you know exactly what the average wages are, the entry-level wages are, the 25th percentile wages if you want that. Things like that, the median wages, whatever information you want basically concerning wages, we're going to have right here in our OES wages. So, I just want to make sure. Another one, now I'm not going to use this, this is a weird illustration, but I've always been impressed by glass blowers, if you know what a glass blower is. Because I once went to Disneyland in California and these guys were out there blowing this glass and turning them into swans and circles. I was like, that's amazing. And it is. But the demand's not there. I think it may be even more now than it was, say, 20 years ago because it's a specialty kind of artisan type of occupation. But that's probably not going to show up very much into projections. It probably is going to be classified into an all other occupational category anyway, so it's not going to be particularly useful. But when you use that autocoder, you find that occupation you're interested in, you can look at the wages in the OES wages. You can also look at projections. Now, our projections came out in September, very late September. In fact, it may have been October. We were kind of going back and forth trying to make sure the data is correct, making sure that we have a good format up, things like that. But you can find out various bits of information about our projected occupation. For instance, the overall projection in the state of Texas is 16.6% from 2016 to 2026. What does that mean? Well, some occupations have a little bit higher growth, some occupations have a little bit lower growth. You might want to have that basic information for the Austin area. Workforce development areas are interesting structured. Here in Travis County, it's the capital area workforce development area. In Round Rock and the surrounding areas, it's the rural capital area. If you're traveling to Dallas, and you're wondering how's Dallas, Dallas has 3 different workforce development areas. They have Tarrant County, Dallas County, and North Central Texas, which is like the donut surrounding the donut hole. It's a big area. You go over to Houston, you got Gulf Coast, it's one gigantic area that includes the metropolitan statistical area. So I think those are probably the 2 main bits of information. So on our tool, if you're going to choose, you go over to wages and click on Austin Round Rock MSA, choose an occupation. In this particular case, I chose aircraft as in the search engine, and here's the 4 occupations that showed up below.
If you see, like if you do a search, can you go back one slide? If you do a search and nothing comes up, would you suggest then changing the term to one of those needs? I
would suggest using autocoder to make sure you've got that term in the title that you can use to find what you're looking for. We make suggestions. Believe me, I have a suggestion Excel spreadsheet. If I find something I don't like on this website, the way that something's being done, like we had for hourly wages, they were not rounded to the to the cent. They were just, you know, dollars. I was like, oh, come on, we gotta round that off to the cents. This is hourly wages, and they corrected it pretty quickly. But we find stuff all the time, and some corrections are easy to make, and some aren't. But I mean, honestly, our stock code numbers are an easy way to search. If they were here, they're not. So a keyword that's usually used in one of those, like in that out of autocoder, is going to help you find what needs to be found. If they're not here, and believe me, we had an issue with this in another category of data the other day. If they're not there, you will miss something, and I don't like missing things. Especially when we have somebody high up in our agency that's wanting information. You don't want to mess that up. So, I don't know if that answered your question. Yeah, look for the keyword in autocoder, honestly. You can shift around if you want, but keywords are really, really, really important. So you see that here's the 4 categories that came up. Basically hit them and say, well, what kind of industry do you want to use? Here's a little trick about using industries with occupations. If we take an industry and don't use all industries, like I've got that X in right there, we're gonna lose some of the sample. If you said, well, how about airplane mechanics and manufacturing? Okay, we saw that there was a manufacturing industry that used airplane mechanics, but normally I wouldn't think that. You might not get much of a return. In this particular case, you would, because we've already seen what the staffing pattern was from autocoder. But normally, that's not necessarily the way it works. So, normally I'm going to say choose total all industries, so you're not diluting the sample. And so here's the 2 that came back for the Austin MSA. And, you know, the Austin MSA is a pretty good size area. It's about the same size as San Antonio. In fact, we actually have a little bit larger labor force in the Austin, Round Rock metropolitan area than does San Antonio, New Braunfels MSA. They have a higher population. We have a larger labor force, which means we have a larger labor force participation rate. Now, that's not really surprising for those of us who have seen this going on in Travis County for a while. What's kind of surprising is that we just passed San Antonio last year. So anyway, you'll see we have some average wages here in Austin for these 2 occupations. They're slightly above average, well, especially 53,000 is a little bit above average. You see an entry-level wage, which is kind of, people call us up and say, what's entry-level wage? Well, it's a mathematical calculation that the Bureau, not the Bureau of Labor Statistics, but in this particular case, the Department of Labor, Employment, and Training Administration does for some of their wage surveys. And it's basically the average of the lower 1/3. The experience wage is the average of the upper 2/3. And so it really doesn't have anything to do with number of years, but it does give you an idea of how these are scattered out. Potentially, we also have 25th percentile, 10th percentile, median 50th percentile, 75th percentile, 90th percentile. So hopefully enough information so that you'll go in informed. If somebody says to you, well, how much would you like to make? And you'll say, well, I've been working at this for 5 years. I feel like I'm about at the average level. The average level for this particular occupation is, and you give them a quotation. You're informed. They know you're informed. They'll either say, oh, that's bad, or they'll say that's good. If they say that's bad, then you probably didn't want to work there anyway. If they say that's good, you wanted to work there. The fact that you're an informed person looking for a job is normally important, especially to competent employers. Okay. Just want to make sure I didn't skip anything. So if you're going over to, and this is the way I tend to do it, once I get into this tool, I tend to go right over to LMI by category. If you want to go to projections and see what's a good projection, you just click on projections. I have a tendency to choose area types from the map if there's more than one, because I don't like going down the alphabetical list. But you can do it either way. This particular case, I went and chose capital area and rural capital area. We quoted the wages for Austin in the metropolitan area. Our projections are not produced by metropolitan areas. They are produced by workforce development areas because the Employment and Training Administration wants to include all counties in the state of Texas, and so 28 workforce development areas include all 254 Texas counties. If you just go by MSAs, probably about 85 or 90 counties out of the 254 counties are included. So it's not a difficult thing to adjust to, but in this particular case, I chose rural capital and capital of Texas area, and we went on. I always have to click on add selections or else I won't get them to post up in the bit of information. So there's a lot of occupations to choose from, and you type, and I chose accountants, so type accountants up in the top line, search occupations. That's what I got, put an X in that box down there, and took the accountants and auditors and the projections for rural capital and north central, and actually it looks like I did a little bit more than that. I think I did a little bit more than that because I came up with this chart. We tweet these things out all the time. If you want to see statistical information like projections and wages, go to TX Workforce, at TX Workforce. That's our Twitter account. You also may see if Texas Workforce has a LinkedIn article, you may see charts like this in there. You may also see it in Facebook. I don't exactly know the media presence. I don't have a LinkedIn account, shock, but I'm not looking for a job because I'm pretty happy with this job. Well, I'm pretty happy except for the other day when we got really overloaded on a request. But, you know, that's jobs. Sometimes you're busy, sometimes you're not, but I feel like I'm actually doing a job I'm fairly qualified for. So you see what we came up for here. Rural capital rating up very high in accountants. I don't think Travis County made it. Travis County is just basically slightly below the Texas 10-year growth area. I wouldn't worry about that personally. But if you look in Round Rock and other places like Hays County in the surrounding area, they're showing a little bit higher growth. So it's pretty consistent with accountants. So while these data categories may be most useful for you, there are other categories. Local area unemployment statistics, keyword unemployment. Think unemployment rate. Unemployment rate in the state of Texas it's not the lowest it's ever been, but it's right at it. Actually, not seasonally adjusted, it's 3.7%, 3.6%, actually 3.6% for seasonally adjusted. It's slightly below the U.S. The U.S. and Texas have been over the last year just a point or so from each other. So that's the most understood actual economic statistic we have in this nation, and you probably know something about it. Current employment statistics, the second most important statistic, economic statistic that you'll hear about is job growth. It actually gives us a month-to-month job growth. We're going to be releasing January data on March the 8th after our annual benchmarking process. We'll see how things change around, but basically right now Texas is about I think 3.1% seasonally adjusted, and I think 3.5 or 3.6% total private. Kind of our state governments not growing much because, well, we have jobs that are open and we have information that the private sector will go and raid from the state government when they're looking for jobs. Usually offer more money and some fringe benefits. We also have the quarterly census of employment and wages. If you want to take an in-depth look at industry data, going down to the county level, that's what you're going to be interested in. Our most recent data was just released last week. It was the third quarter of 2008, so we have about a 5-month lag on that data. This will help you to evaluate the overall economy in the area, and the TexasLMI.com can help you find this data. So there's our regional louse data. I honestly thought I was going to be in Williamson County until I checked the emails yesterday. And so you'll see that basically Travis County and the city of Austin have the lowest unemployment rate in the area. You're looking for a job, when I was looking for a job, it was really low too. And I was like, and the guy, one of the radio people said to me, well, you should be able to find a job really easy. I was like, yeah, sure. It wasn't easy. But what I was doing in writing and searching, like I say, the key was finding those applications, honestly. But I was writing for a monthly newspaper. That's good on the writing skills, goes on the resume. I helped somebody run a campaign or do some interviews and things like that. That goes on the resume. So there's all sorts of things that, even when you're looking for a job, you can be enlarging your resume and your experience. And it can pay off. So there's the Texas unemployment rate, not seasonally adjusted compared to the U.S. And that's compared to our local area unemployment rates. So you can see that, of course, locally we're doing much better than the state of Texas overall. Our biggest growth industries around here, this is from current employment statistics. You can see that the Austin MSA is growing at a 3.5% rate. That's very high. It's higher than the statewide average. 3.9% for total private. Again, the private sector is going much better than the overall sector. Machinery manufacturing, 10.3%. That's almost outrageously high. Wholesale trade. This is not surprising. It has done very well in Texas and does extremely well in the Austin area. It just has kind of a variety of industry, but they're basically selling products and services to businesses as opposed to the retail level. Finance and insurance industry showing strong growth. Professional and scientific and technical services, where a lot of our computer services are located, doing very well. That's not surprising, especially trade contractors, construction area, electricians, plumbers, welders, doing very well. Not surprising. Always my typical joke when I'm presenting is, look at the cranes. They're not birds, they are steel. In fact, the other day I was over by the former Highland Mall, the current ACC campus, going, what in the world are those cranes building? Are they building condos, or are they building classroom space? And I have no idea. But they're building away, and that's just right up in North Austin in a kind of a specialized area. This is going on all over the city. It's going on all over the state. I think the fun thing is you can go up and down I-35 if you aren't having to just pay attention to crazy drivers and construction zones. You can actually count cranes in each city, and there's a lot. So construction, especially trade contractors in Austin, doing extremely well. So here's some basic roundup areas for the area from the quarterly census of employment and wages. Not surprisingly, perhaps, professional, scientific, and technical services, where we talked about where those computers services are located. Right here in Travis County, that's the biggest industry. Average weekly wages in Travis County above other areas. Williamson County second, not surprising. Williamson County retail trade is kind of surprising. Look at the level of employers and employment. Almost 750,000 in Travis County, almost 200,000 in Williamson County. Those are two very large counties. Hayes County, almost 70,000, not quite as large. But you'll see healthcare in two of the 6 counties that we looked at is the largest industry. Bell and Caldwell, not surprising for Bell. Retail trade in Hayes and Bastrop County and Williamson County. That's not unusual for suburban counties. So how can labor market information help you? Well, it helps you identify your jobs of interest, AutoCoder. Helps you identify occupations and their wages. Helps you identify occupations and their projected growth. Helps you understand the economic conditions and context for the jobs you're looking for. Work in Texas and finding job openings is the most important tool, I think, for you. Of everything I presented today, I'm not in work in Texas. It's still the most important thing. File those applications. That's my name. That's my phone number. You're welcome to send an email to twc.state.t or lmi@twc.state.tx.us. I answer the emails. I answer the phones. As soon as I get done, I'll find some lunch and head on back downtown and start doing a data extract and answering phones and answering emails. So, questions, anybody? Yes?
Have there been longitudinal studies about how accurate the projections have been over successive years?
There have been there's all sorts of longitudinal studies. We have a joke about projections. The joke is if we were really good at projections, we wouldn't be living in Austin, Texas. We'd be living in Las Vegas. There's a methodology that's applied by the Bureau of Labor Statistics to all workforce development areas, and it's funded by the Employment and Training Administration. So the DOL, Employment Training, but the Bureau of Labor Statistics basically does the methodology behind it. It's a standard methodology. It's applied to all 50 states. It's applied to all workforce development areas. And is it good? I will tell you that we had a meeting with the Austin Chamber of Commerce, and they didn't think it was particularly good. They thought that the estimate was a little low. And I said, please contact the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I kind of actually agree with them. But a methodology is something we don't have a whole lot of control over. But local, large, independent groups with knowledge can influence future methodologies for projections. So, it doesn't answer your question.
If anyone has gone back and said, okay, 10 years ago, this was the projection,
Right.
How accurate? I mean, no one has a crystal ball.
Yeah, no, I'm sure they have. We have, when somebody says, well, where's your 2004 to 2014 projections? We'll say, well, we don't save them because each new projection replaces the old projection. So it's not technically a time series, but I think that's the reason, because our long-term projections look really bad, and we replace them every 2 years.
Yeah.
So we have longitudinal studies in various forms of data. I'm sure that somebody's done one, and somebody goes, oh, this looks really bad. But it's the best information we have, and it's a standardized methodology. And if we could only predict the future better, we'd do a better job. But it is not one of our strengths, unfortunately. I mean, the basic methodology is you look back over 10 years, you can see what the growth pattern is, apply it to the base year and the 10 years from there. And that's hopefully what it is. It's what it is in industries, and we look at the industries and the staffing patterns in the industries and the occupations in the industries, and we apply those and come up with the occupations. And then we do that all over again, so we produce them every 2 years. Not a good answer, but the best one I got. Yes?
Does all that information, I'm sorry, can cover anything about the gig economy?
Gig economy is covered on the national level, but not on the local level. So we have to, when it comes to projections, the gig economy is applied nationally for all the contractors and stuff like that. For instance, if you go into professional and business services, you have a fair amount of contract people that do work by contract. Well, we gather data from employers. If you've ever been an employer and you had to file unemployment insurance taxes, that's where a lot of our data comes from. So if you're in the gig economy, for everybody that you hire as a self-employed person or a contractor, that's not going to be included in there. For every office worker you have that you have to have unemployment insurance for, that's going to be included. So believe me, when I was the delivery driver, and I was a 1099 person, and when I became in the warehouse, assigning people to go do and getting things together, and the night dispatcher and things like that, I didn't have to worry about tearing my car up as much as when I was a 1099 person. So, yeah, there's it's an interesting question, but we do include it in projections in particular from the national statistics, but it does not come from our local statistics.